All right. Hi, Rob. Thank you for joining me for InsideOCULA's new segment, Rapid Fire Questions. Ready to go?
I'm all ready, thank you.
What is your favorite emoji?
Oh, my favorite emoji. That's a really good question. I overuse the person with their tongue sticking out, like most millennials seem to. I don't know that I have a favorite emoji. I use so many in my work.
Fair enough. That's fun. What is your favorite library?
I feel like if I don't say my current workplace, then someone's going to get upset with me. My favorite academic library is certainly where I work at U of T Mississauga. It's a great library. But I have very fond memories of the public library I grew up in, which is in Lindsay up north. So the Kawartha Lakes Public Library. It was a huge formative part of my life.
I have a very soft spot in my heart for all public libraries. I love that answer. What is your favorite children's book?
I was talking about it this morning with my partner, based on all the Dr. Seuss news that's been going out. My favorite book growing up was Oh, the Things You Can Think by Dr. Seuss. I have 2 copies, a new one that I'm hoping to read to kids of my own one day, and the original one that my father read to me.
Oh, that's so sweet. I'll have to read that. Coffee or tea?
So much tea. So many times I'm the tea dealer at my work.
That's a good thing for me to remember. How many cups a day of tea?
Today, I think I'm on my 2.5. I had some leftover from last night, my usual Earl Grey from this morning, and I was just sipping a chocolate mint tea just before we started this call.
Wow, that's 2.5 for the early afternoon is a pretty good pace. So, who is your favorite character? Who's your favorite character from a book?
Is it cliche to say Frodo Baggins? My previous academic background was all about Lord of the Rings and medieval studies. That's how I got into it, and I always identified with Frodo. I guess that's my answer. That was my gut reaction.
That's not cliche at all. We all love Frodo. Everyone loves Frodo. And I also haven't done enough of these to be able to tell you if it's cliche yet. Okay, so board games or video games?
Yes. I play a lot of video games, but board game nights are a big thing with our friends. We're trying to do them virtually right now, but I'm also a dungeon master in my spare time, so I run tabletop role-playing games, which is kind of a little bit of both, I guess.
All right, hold that thought. We're going to come back to that. What are you currently reading?
Currently, I am reading, I'm trying to remember the name of the series, the Remembrance of Earth's Past series, which is by, this is a Chinese science fiction series. So I've just started the second book, which is called The Dark Forest.
Wow, that sounds really interesting.
It's fascinating.
If you weren't working in a library, what would you be doing?
Like a lot of academic librarians, academia was the original goal. So if I weren't in a library, I'd like to think I would be a professor of medieval literature.
It makes sense. So you wouldn't go very far, probably. Maybe just down the hall.
After you do that, libraries are sort of the next obvious step.
Where will you travel once we can travel again?
My partner and I are planning to have our honeymoon in Japan next year.
Wow, that's so exciting. Oh, I really hope things are cleared up by then.
What
would your ideal office look like?
It would have a lot more in the background than I currently do. I am a bit of a poster junkie. You can see my pile of them back in the bottom corner there that I haven't gotten around to putting up yet. But generally, I like to be surrounded by lots of bookshelves, like I'm sure many other people in our field. And lots of, honestly, just knickknacks, plushies, that sort of thing. I like to be surrounded by things that make me feel at home.
Cool. We'll have to circle back once you've got your new office all set up and your posters all hung. Okay, cats or dogs?
Cats, absolutely. I grew up with cats. I have 2 of my own now, and now that we have our own house, we're looking at adopting at least 1 or 2 more.
Oh, yay! Okay, what is the funniest or weirdest reference question you have ever had to answer?
Oh, give me a second to think about that one. Yeah, you're gonna have to give me a second on that one. I don't know that I have a particular funny or silly one. What I will say is that when I was in library school, I was working at one of the campus libraries, and for our reference assignment, we had to go in and and ask a reference question and sort of write a paper about the experience. And what I can tell you is after you've done reference for a little while, you can absolutely tell when a library student is the one asking the question.
Okay, fair enough. That's an interesting tell. Okay, what's your least favorite library-related stereotype?
You work in a library. That must be so fun and relaxing. Hear it all the time, and it never becomes true.
Yeah, no, I wish. What's one piece of advice you'd give to new grads?
Service, volunteer. I have my current job largely because I applied to be an editor at InsideOCULA. I was pushed by one of my mentors early in my career to get involved, and that gave me the communication experience I needed to land a permanent status position. I don't think I would be where I was without it. And the second is don't ask permission. Just volunteer. Just start asking. People who just sort of wait for the invitation to come are going to be waiting for a while, because you never know what kind of opportunities are out there until you start asking.
That's a really good advice. Okay, so now moving on to some personal questions. As anyone who follows you on Twitter would know, and as you just mentioned earlier in these responses, you love tabletop role-playing games. Let's wrap up our session with a couple of gaming questions. So what is your favorite tabletop game?
I've mostly run Dungeons and Dragons games, mostly the 3.5 edition, but we've recently been jumping into Pathfinder 2, which I appreciate for its flexibility and for sort of the breakneck pace.
Cool. Dungeon Master or player character?
I've been running games as the Dungeon Master or the Game Master for so many years now that I feel like I would be a horrible player because I know all of the ins and outs, and I would find every loophole. And I don't think any of my friends would be friends with me anymore if I were their player.
Okay, that's really funny. That makes a lot of sense though. Once you get used to it, I guess. It seems really intimidating to me from the outside, but that's a really cool thing to consider. What is the most important thing for someone to do when role-playing or playing a role-playing game?
Immerse yourself. A lot of new people will start playing somebody who's either very much like them or sort of an idealized version of themselves. But I find that the most engrossing stories and frankly the most growth that we have as people often happens when we envision ourselves as others or in other people's circumstances. So I encourage people, once they're comfortable, to play someone completely unlike yourself. Put yourself in somebody else's shoes. That's usually where the most inspiring stories come from.
That's really good advice too. Okay, last question. Where is your favorite tabletop store or community? Because I know community is such a big part of the culture.
That's a good question. I have to admit I've jumped around provinces for so long that I'm still getting to know the community that I'm in now. I went to university in Peterborough at Trent, and there was an old comic store called Jeff's Cards and Comics that I used a lot. But that's many years ago, more than I'm going to admit publicly in this video. But yeah, we're still getting to know them. I will say that the online tabletop community is maybe the community I'm most connected to now. And I'm seeing some really fascinating discussions happen about the purpose of the community and some of the things that we need to reckon with.
Awesome. That's really great. Well, that's the end of my questions. Thank you so much for sharing more about you with me and with the rest of the Ontario Library community. And we'll see you on the page at InsideOCULA.
Thank you.
Bye.